Not too far from where I'm sitting, a pair of sparrowhawk are building a nest. I've been watching them over the past week or so, carrying twigs and nesting material to the nest. There's a male. Male's just flown back. I forgot about my tea. I got so excited watching all this action that my tea's going cold. So the sparrowhawk couple have moved on from these trees just here. I don't know where they are at the moment, but somewhere over there in the trees on that side is their nest, because I've been seeing them carrying nest material up there. So I'm going to keep a good distance from the nest, because you mustn't disturb sparrowhawk nests during the breeding season. But this is a great place here to sit and observe them, because they use these trees here so much for feeding. It must be the feeding post or feeding area that they use. And one of the things I think is interesting about, and apparently this is true with lots of birds of prey, is that because I was watching them the other day and I saw a blue tit just fly across the front of the a female sparrowhawk, and it was just flitting about. You know, I mean, I don't know whether because the sparrowhawk was stationary, the blue tit knew that it wasn't quick enough to get going and get after it, or whether the blue tit didn't recognise the sparrowhawk while it was just sitting stationary in a tree, and it only recognises the sparrowhawk in its flight silhouette, as it were. I don't know. Or maybe the blue tit knows something that bird researchers have found, that birds of prey often don't predate on their near neighbours. So a wood pigeon or a crow or a sparrow or a tits or whatever can actually breed and raise young in close proximity to a bird of prey and not be in fear of being predated upon, being eaten, and that birds of prey like peregrine and sparrowhawk and so on, that they will travel a little distance before they hunt. So I think that's interesting. I mean, of course, obviously, one of the ways that you often see birds of prey is when they're being mobbed by crows or by seagulls or whatever. I've actually seen up on the Isle of Arran in Scotland, I've seen a buzzard mobbing a golden eagle, you know, which is quite a spectacular sight. And that's where, you know, obviously the smaller birds or the birds that are potential prey, particularly in the breeding season, will want to ward off a bird of prey to keep it away from their chicks, from their young. So yeah, so I mean, I wonder whether to avoid being mobbed in their own nest or in their own area, they leave their near neighbours alone. Just a theory, but well, that's a crow that's just flown over. So yes, so I wonder if the birds in this area feel safe, because I've noticed. I don't think that the nest is too deep in these woods here, and I've noticed that there's a wood pigeon nesting just up here. So they're not that far away from this Sparrowhawk couple. So we'll see how it goes. But they're in some ways, the more difficult a bird is to find, the more difficult it is to see. It's kind of more rewarding when you do find it, and when you are able to get a reasonable photograph of it, or a bit of video footage. It's more satisfying, really. But I mean, I just think they're so beautiful. They're just beautiful birds. I don't know why, but although they are full of murderous intent, I've always liked raptors, birds of prey, kestrel, buzzard. I've seen a few eagles, not that many. Had a nice view of one in the Alps once, golden eagle. And I've seen golden eagles in Scotland. Often you see them at a distance, and I'd love to get I need to go up to Scotland and get some time with eagles, I think. I've never seen a white-tailed eagle. I'd love to see one of those. One's been seen in Lincolnshire recently. And also down on the south coast. I mean, it's very exciting. I've seen eagles the African fish eagle. That's quite a spectacular bird. Of course, you don't get that here. And also, I've seen different kinds of eagles in India. I spent quite a long time watching. This is years ago. I spent a lot of time watching eagles in a lovely forest in northern India. That was wonderful. Within the last sort of 7 to 8 days, not far from here, I photographed, not a very good photograph, but I photographed a red kite flying over, and I photographed a buzzard being mobbed by crows, and I photographed the sparrowhawk. And often you get kestrel. I photographed I'll put the picture up actually. I photographed a kestrel not far from here as well, but that was a few weeks ago. But that's I think that's pretty good for London. The woods in London, quite a good crop of raptors. I remember as a child spending time in these woods and not seeing anything. Of course, that was after the heavy use of pesticides, which caused the raptor populations in the UK and across the so-called civilized world to crash as a result of these toxic chemicals that were used. I'd prefer if even less chemicals were used than today, but it's much better today than it was back in the 60s and 70s. But raptor populations are recovering, and it's a sign of a healthier ecosystem, a healthier environment. Of course, we need to carry on and do a lot more, but at least on the duck. I don't know what a duck is doing flying over here. This is woodland not the habitat for ducks. Mind you, there are quite a few small little ponds and in the woods, and often you get a resident mallard couple in each pond. Let's have a bit more tea. Yeah, so raptors are doing well. I mean, a lot of this is due to the wonderful work being done by conservation groups, such as the local wildlife trusts and the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, which have supported various reintroduction programs. So the red kite, which was basically, when I started bird watching, if you wanted to see a red kite, you had to go to mid Wales, and there were about 4 pairs, and that was the sum total of the UK population of red kites. Of course, they've been released at different points in England, and the populations have been supported with feeding and so on. And now there are actually there are hundreds and hundreds of pairs of red kites in the country, and they're doing well. They're spreading, and the habitat is good for red kites. They were numerous in the Middle Ages in Britain, and it's wonderful to see them. I think it's I've seen them flying over my garden in London, high in the sky, of course, but I've seen them flying over my garden in London. Which is amazing, considering that I'd never seen one till about 10 years ago. And buzzard again. Years ago, I used to go to Cornwall a lot and see buzzards. Once you went down into the West Country, sort of down to once you got it into Hampshire and into sort of Somerset and Dorset, Devon, you started to see lots of buzzards. But you would never see buzzards in the east of England, or very rarely. It would be like a rare vagrant. Whereas now, I regularly see buzzards in the woods around here. Fairly regularly. That's amazing to me. I think that a lot of work has been done with the persecution of raptors. A lot of people have, although it's illegal, a lot of people still feel it's okay to steal eggs and to trap and shoot them. Of course, that still goes on. Unfortunately, a lot of Britain is owned by people who run shooting estates, and of course they perceive that birds of prey are a threat to their lucrative shooting party hosting. So of course those people are still illegally killing, as is often reported. They still illegally kill hen harrier and buzzard and so on. But generally speaking, things are getting better. Hopefully, we can persuade these landowners to abide by the law and not kill birds of prey. But yeah, so I mean, it's fantastic seeing these. I mean, I think they're very exciting birds to observe and to watch, and I just think it's wonderful for generations to come, who will be able to enjoy this exciting wildlife, hopefully for a long time. I'm just using, at the moment, just for those of you who are interested in these things, I'm just using my phone, which I've got mounted on top of the camera, as a screen, so I can see myself talking to you, and I can see that I'm in focus, and I can see that my head's not chopped off in the frame, so it's quite good. And I'm just sort of weighing up whether to get, I can hear a woodpecker again there, I'm just weighing up whether to get an actual a dedicated monitor, or whether this camera's this my phone is good enough to use as a camera screen. Seems to be working okay. I'm using the Nikon Snap-Bridge application to get the connection between the camera and the phone. Seems to be working okay. There's a tiny lag, but it's not much. So it's enough. I don't really need. I just need to be able to check that I'm in focus, and that that I'm not. I've seen people doing a YouTube video where they're talking to the camera like this. I'd rather not do that. I'd prefer to have my whole head in view. Just an aesthetic thing, possibly. But yeah, so it seems to be working okay. I've made about 20 YouTube videos, but I'm still getting used to just talking to the camera and looking at the camera and trying to sort of visualize people looking back at me. But it is something, I suppose you do get used to it over time. But I'm tempted to look at the screen up there, which is only 6 inches above, or less than that, above the 15 centimeters, if you're metric, above the camera lens. But the temptation is always to look at the screen. That woodpecker's giving it some energy this morning. Yeah, so it's pretty quiet today. It's quite nice. The cold weather really helps. Cold and grey, and people stay at home, so it's good. I'm not cold at all. I've got years ago I used to do a lot of mountain climbing, so in order to survive you had to dress according to the conditions, and you had to be prepared for changing conditions. So it's second nature to me to just put the right amount of clothes on for the weather. But some people just seem to, I don't know, they seem to go out in the same clothes regardless of the temperature or the weather conditions, and then they find it uncomfortable. But it's just being comfortable outside is just a question of dressing appropriately. So I just put on an extra layer today. Quite simple, really. I've got a fleece and a jumper and my Austrian Army green shirt, which is what I use to try and look a bit less conspicuous to the birds. So you'll notice that I'm pretty green. Recently I bought a couple of army surplus jackets, which are camouflage, and they seem to be quite good. If you sit still with a camouflage jacket on, often I find birds and squirrels and things, and they just walk around and don't notice you. If you keep real still and quiet, So yeah, they seem to be working well. I've also last year I bought a camouflage T-shirt, and but it's not really been warm enough to wear it yet. So I need to have a camouflage clothing that's every layer of my clothes, so that I can be as inconspicuous to wildlife as possible. Yeah. That tea is good.